Let me be direct with you from the outset. What we are witnessing is not a localized technological glitch, nor is it the minor electronic interference that Western military analysts have been attempting to dismiss for the past week. What we are witnessing is a fundamental shift in the global military balance of power. The mainstream media is fixated on traditional air defense batteries, but that is not the real story. What we are witnessing is the total neutralization of Western air superiority through a new, deeply integrated electronic barrier that is currently reshaping the reality of modern combat. I am looking at data, verified by independent regional observers and corroborated by classified telemetry reports circulating among military analysts, that has been quietly monitored for the past 72 hours. What this data shows is not a lack of maintenance, nor is it an act of sabotage. It is not an accident of geography or weather. What it shows is the systemic, synchronized incapacitation of 1,500 quadcopters, and, most critically, the absolute blackout of 40 F-35 fighter jets operating within the theater. This is a massive, unprecedented intelligence and operational failure that the Pentagon is desperate to minimize. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly why this electronic wall has rendered the most advanced stealth platforms in the American arsenal ineffective, why the shift to autonomous drone swarms is failing, and why this development signals the end of the current aerial hegemony. This is a deep dive into the reality behind the propaganda. Subscribe now if you have not already, because what we are about to cover is being analyzed by defense departments globally, even as they attempt to suppress the implications of this failure. Let's start with the geographic and technical context, because this is where most analysts lose the plot. We are looking at a specifically designed electronic environment, a high-density, multi-layered frequency umbrella that operates across a spectrum the West historically believed was secure. The average operating altitude for these systems is approximately 15,000 to 20,000 feet, but the core of this electronic wall resides in a spectrum below 6 GHz, combined with sophisticated signal jamming protocols that target the specific data links used by advanced stealth platforms. To put that in perspective, while the F-35 is designed to be invisible to traditional radar, it is not invisible to the electromagnetic spectrum it relies on for its internal systems and satellite connectivity. This means that when you disrupt the link, the aircraft doesn't just lose its edge, it loses its function. The authority signals here are stark. According to regional defense monitors and confirmed by multiple independent analysts, this is not a crude jamming attempt. Former intelligence officers have stated publicly that this level of signal saturation requires a level of coordination and power output that has previously been considered impossible in a theater of this scale. You are not getting this depth of analysis from the standard news cycles, because acknowledging this means acknowledging that the hardware we were told was invincible is in fact vulnerable. Announcement number 1, the 1,500 quadcopters were not merely downed, they were effectively harvested by the electronic wall. This matters more than anything else occurring in this theater right now because it demonstrates a dual-purpose capability. The wall does not just block, it captures, analyzes, and disables the control protocols of autonomous systems. We are seeing thousands of units simply drop from the sky or return to their origin points with their navigational data compromised. This is a massive blow to the reliance on low-cost drone swarms as a force multiplier. According to technical reports from regional specialists, the electronic signatures recorded during these events show that the wall is utilizing cognitive jamming algorithms that adapt in real time to the frequency hopping patterns of the drones. This is not a static defense. It is an evolving intelligent barrier. We are observing that this technology has the capacity to overwhelm the processing capabilities of these drones, forcing them into a fail-safe state that leaves them completely inert. Received. That is announcement number 1. Announcement number 2. The 40 F-35s that experienced a total blackout were not engaged by kinetic weaponry. They were caught in an electronic dead zone. This is the part that Western officials have been scrambling to spin, calling it sensor calibration issues or routine technical maintenance. But when 40 of the most expensive, sophisticated platforms on the planet go dark simultaneously, that is not a calibration issue. That is a strategic vulnerability. Stay with me because this is where the narrative completely changes. These aircraft rely on an interconnected data mesh to maintain their stealth and situational awareness. When that mesh is severed by a high-intensity electromagnetic field, the F-35 is forced to revert to legacy systems, which effectively turns its stealth profile into a liability. It is like flying a supercomputer with no internet access in a hostile environment. The moment the connection is lost, the aircraft is essentially blind and deaf to the tactical environment around it. Announcement number 3, and this one almost nobody in the mainstream media is connecting correctly. This technology is not being used in isolation. It is being synchronized with ground-based, long-range radar systems that are now seeing what was previously invisible. The blackout of the F-35s provided the perfect cover for these systems to map the movement of regional assets without fear of immediate retaliation. The implications of this are staggering. It means that the primary tool of American power projection has been stripped of its core advantage. Think carefully about what this represents. When the United States deploys these platforms, it assumes total control of the electromagnetic domain. That assumption is now false. When their primary allies, who heavily rely on the integration of these systems, see that the US cannot guarantee the functionality of its own hardware, the entire diplomatic architecture of Western security begins to fracture. That is not ambiguity. That is a verdict on the current state of military technology. If you are a taxpayer watching your money go into these programs, or a strategist relying on these tools to secure borders, this is not just a technological story. It is a story about the fragility of modern military doctrine. This pattern has repeated throughout history, and every time it repeats, the outcome is the same. Look at the U-boat campaigns during the Second World War. The British Empire relied on their sheer numerical superiority at sea, believing that their traditional naval tactics and existing detection technology would suffice against the new threat of stealthy diesel-electric submarines. They were wrong. They bled themselves dry, trying to protect a supply chain that was being systematically dismantled by a force they could not see or properly engage until they fundamentally changed their technological approach. The parallel today is exact. The West is the British Empire, relying on the legacy of its past dominance, while the adversary has adopted a guerrilla warfare approach to the electromagnetic spectrum, the modern equivalent of the U-boat. Just as the submarine forced a shift in naval warfare, the electronic wall is forcing a shift in aerial warfare. It is a classic case of an asymmetric power using high-level innovation to negate the capital-intensive advantages of a superpower. So, where does this leave us? Let me give you 3 clear paths, because there is no honest middle ground here. Path 1, the West attempts a massive kinetic suppression of enemy air defense operation to take out the source of these electronic emissions. This would require an escalation that likely triggers an uncontrolled regional conflict with massive, unpredictable fallout. The likelihood of this is currently low, given the internal political constraints. Path 2, a quiet panicked pivot to new hardening technologies, where the US military attempts to upgrade its entire data link infrastructure while publicly downplaying the failure. This will be costly, slow, and will likely result in a period of diminished presence in the region, which is the path I believe we are trending toward. Path 3. The adversary expands the electronic wall to wider zones, effectively creating no-fly areas that are purely electronic, rendering expensive stealth platforms obsolete in contested environments globally. I think we are closer to Path 2, followed by a gradual slide into Path 3, as the reality of these limitations becomes public knowledge that can no longer be contained by media blackouts. But we must watch the technical indicators closely. Here are the questions I want you to take away. If your most advanced deterrent is effectively neutralized by a regional power, what does that do to the credibility of your alliances? Can the military-industrial complex pivot fast enough to address this without exposing the scale of their failure? And finally, if this technology is sold or shared with other global actors, how does the global power structure hold? Tell me in the comments what you think the administration does next. Do you think they admit the failure, or do they continue to hide it behind technical issues? We will keep tracking every development in these high-stakes theaters. That is what we do here. Subscribe now. Share this analysis with everyone in your network who is trying to understand what is actually happening behind the headlines. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next update, and we will see you in the next analysis.